There's an old saying in the design business which is a brief is a collection of client prejudice. A brief is nearly always built upon what the client understands about his market and his business. And the purpose of building knowledge is to get everybody sharing a common vision. Everybody behind what it is you're trying to do, to sharpen up that vision, to be clearer about what we're all trying to do. And we do that in a lot of different ways. Clearly, designers do a lot of this sort of thing. Trying to understand the cultural context for your new product is important, especially somewhere like Europe, which has so many different and diverse cultures. It's also about understanding trends, why they're important, what aspects of them are important, should we be taking notice of this or not. And it's about context in terms of market. Too many companies try and drop a new product idea into a crowded market without really considering whether that's appropriate or whether people will be interested. So we need to compare things like function and price and so on. And then easily the most important aspect is understanding people. I cannot overstate this, and it's so relevant for this 10 touch points project. Learning to watch and understand people and how they actually use things. We do that by going into their homes and talking to them and watching them using products. If you ask a consumer, what do you think of X or Y? Too often their response is not quite accurate. Too often they tell you what they think you want to hear or what they think you should do. But actually when you observe them doing things, you learn so much more. And we do that by actually filming them using products. So here, am I in your way here? No, you can see. So on the top here, these are women using food products, and on the bottom here using beauty care products. Watching the context of use, how they actually use things, where they keep them, how they open them, when do they use them, these sorts of things. And you can get tremendous insights about products from this activity. Sometimes you see real ideas. I'm going to show you an example when we were researching for Bird's Eye into how to create a better packet for frozen peas. We came across this lady. Just watch her using the product.
Just cut it halfway along.
Okay.
Tip out what I need to use, and then just gather it up, screw it round, and just pull it through.
I see.
It just saves all your peas falling out.
Well, brilliant. You know, we didn't need to come up with an idea, she did it for us. And another example, we were commissioned by a manufacturer of stair lifts. Stair lifts are things which we have a chair that goes up and down stairs for old people. And we held a focus group with owners of this client's product. And this one guy was really passionate about a particular feature on his chair, which was a safety interlock, which prevented his grandchildren playing on the chair. And he said this is the most important thing on his chair. And then the following few days we went into these people's homes and watched them using it. Just watch this guy.
As I say, the bringing out them features.
So clearly he couldn't use it. But if we'd listened to him, we'd have learned something. But when we watch him, we learn something else. And that triggered off a new direction, a new thought, a little light went off. We thought we can do better than this. And so the chair actually has what we call a dead man's handle, which is just a simple push-down unit for going up and down. But he can take that off and it becomes the remote control, so he can summon the chair. But it also disables the chair. So what do we learn? We learn that anthropology is more important than technology. That people are more important than things. And at this level of looking at people, political correctness just goes out of the window. We see, for example, that emotionally, Men are really quite simple and linear. Women, on the other hand, are emotionally extremely complex. I love that slide. How often have you seen a woman driving a car? She's probably got 2 children in the back. She's passing one of them a biscuit. She's making a mobile phone call, and she's looking for a parking space. Right? It's amazing. They do it because they can. So that was a little bit of an aside, really. So what do we mean by design? I talked about this 3-stage process, but I think many of you are here as students, and when I was a student, we used to debate at the Royal College of Art about what design really was. And we tried to define design, and of course it really defies definition. But the model that I created then in the 70s, I think it still holds good today. And it's that this activity of design exists somewhere along the line between 2 very opposite things. On the one hand, art and culture, on the other, technical engineering industry. 2 very opposite things, 2 polar extremes in the way that people think. So just consider how people think at these 2 extremes. Our engineering friends tend to think logically, practically, pragmatically, objectively, in a very linear way. The very pragmatism of engineering often has to deny the poetic, which can be the essence of art. Our friends, the artists, completely the reverse. Intuitive, emotional, subjective, and decidedly non-linear in the way that they think. And this, of course, is left-right brain thinking, but it oversimplifies it, I think. Design is not some middle ground. It doesn't exist at some halfway point. The point about design is that designers range the length of this line day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, 1 minute up this end, thinking about structure, technology, molding, tool cadence, mechanism, and so on. And the next up this end, thinking about cultural issues, aesthetic issues, anthropology, and so on. And it's the fact that we range the length of this line on a daily basis that gives designers bandwidth. It's a really, I mean, it's a modern word, but in this context, bandwidth in your thinking is crucial to ideas. Absolutely crucial. Because whatever you can dream at this end, you need to be able to embody at this end. So bandwidth in your knowledge is important. And there's a little story I want to tell you from the book The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. A boy draws this picture and he says to his friend, "What do you think this is?" And the boy says, his friend says, "This is a hat." And the boy says, "No, it's not. It's a snake that's eaten an elephant." And the point of the story is we see things not as they are, but as we are. This is why it's so important to look. Depending on who you are, what kind of person, your skills, your profession, and all of these things, we each see things differently. When an engineer looks at something, he sees something different. So learning to look is absolutely crucial. And in the 10 Touch Points project, when we first started talking about it, we used your banknote as an example of what that says about Singapore to visitors to Singapore. And we looked at that and said, what does this say about Singapore? Singapore, the brand. Think of Singapore as a brand. And we thought this says, we're a little bit traditional, we're quite old-fashioned. This banknote could have been designed at any time in the last 50 years. It doesn't say that Singapore is a contemporary place. If you compare that with the Swiss banknote, first of all, it's portrait instead of landscape. It still has a key person from history on it, but it looks contemporary and modern. Each note is a different size so that you can't mistake a 50 for a 10. They each have something on them which a blind person can feel to say what value that note is. That's design thinking. That's a touch point which every single person every day in that nation comes into contact with. That's the kind of thing that we thought was important when you're looking at 10 touch points for Singapore.